Hey. Whew. How y'all doing? Welcome to Friday evening. I happen to be home a little bit early tonight. Thank you, Lord. So I started drinking my Long Island iced tea a little bit early. I wonder, you know what? Let me take these bubbles out. Maybe you can see the birds coming and going on these damn bird feeders. And maybe you'll get to see the, what is it called? The Yankee Flipper work. So, you see that big tree in the center that's focused. And if you see the bird feeder that's in front of it, it's called a Yankee Flipper, right? Because when you have bird houses and bird food out, the squirrels eat more of the bird seed than the damn birds. But not with a Yankee Flipper. Hopefully a squirrel will come along. Because with the Yankee Flipper, when the squirrel jumps on it, it spins around and flings them off. It's the funniest shit, especially when you're drunk. It's the funniest shit to see. Uh-oh. I just remembered. I got to charge the battery in it. So if a squirrel gets on it, it's not going to flip them. But one of these days, I'm going to go live. And we going to get some good-ass laughs watching the fucking squirrels jump on that shit and get flung off into a tree and shit. I hate them fucking squirrels. They're beautiful and they're cute. But ever since I've been at war with them for 3 fucking years in my attic, I'm not too fond of them anymore, but they're still cute. And who knows, maybe some deer will come by and grace us with their presence. I have a doe that comes, and she was pregnant. And then one day she came up with her 2 babies. She had twins. Babies are so cute. So cute. And every now and then you see a buck. I think I got a buck around here that has an 8-pointer. But we'll see if they show up. Anyway, happy Friday, y'all. So I'm home a little bit early. And I like to have my Long Island iced tea. It don't take but a few sips to get me going. Because right now I am tipsy as hell. And maybe I shouldn't go live when I'm tipsy. That might not be a good fucking idea. But whatever. You hear that? That's Jumanji and Diva. I haven't been upstairs yet. And they haven't seen me in a couple of days. So they're calling for me. Whatever, niggas. Whatever. Anyway, serial killer soap opera. Y'all, it's a soap opera going on amongst serial killers. So let me tell you. You got Rex Huermeyer, a.k.a. Lisk. Lisk. Lisk stands for the Long Island serial killer. He's also known as the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Okay? Rex Huermeyer. Then you got, what's his name? Bryan Kohberger. Bryan Christopher Kohberger, a.k.a. BCK. Don't get him mixed up with BTK. BTK is coming up next. You got BCK, Bryan Kohberger. Who's Bryan Kohberger? Well, Bryan Kohberger would be a serial killer if he didn't get caught on his first round. He's out there in Idaho. He slaughtered 4 individuals at a university frat house or something. And they're both very similar to BTK, a.k.a. Dennis Rader. They're very similar. Dennis Rader's first murders were 4 individuals, a family of 4, as so with Bryan Kohberger. Dennis Rader, he's so bad he gave himself his own nickname, BTK. What does BTK stand for? Bind, torture, kill. And Brian Kohlberger, his name is Brian Christopher Kohlberger, so folks are calling him BCK. But unlike BTK, Brian Kohlberger got caught after his very first murder. So they're calling him a mass murderer, not a serial killer. If they had not caught him, trust me, he'd be a serial killer. What's the difference between a mass murderer and a serial killer? Well, a mass murderer kills a group of people all at once. And a serial killer kills somebody. Serial killer, classified as a serial killer if you have at least 3 murders. So serial killers are akin to drug addicts. Like a drug addict, they got to get their hit of crack, and they'll smoke. And there's a cool down period where they sleep the shit off when they finally can get to sleep. And then they got to get another hit. Serial killers operate the same way. Only difference is they ain't smoking crack. They are killing people. Now, the title of this video is Serial Killer Soap Opera. Why? Because it's a serial killer soap opera going on. So, Brian Kohlberger, I think he murdered these people in last October, I think. And they might have apprehended him December or January. I don't know. He stabbed these people, 4 people, 3 women and 1 man. And the man was part of a triplet, meaning he had, I think, a brother and a sister. They were triplets. I know that fucking hurts. And they caught up with him. He had been stalking them, much like BTK. BTK, as he called it, he would troll victims. He would have a lot of projects, and I put projects in quotes because that's what he would call them. And he would stalk them, see what time they left work in the morning and what time they came home, and if anybody lived with them. Look, BTK is a trip. I have started a book called Inside the Mind of BTK. So if you're interested in him, go search my channel for Inside the Mind of BTK by John Douglas. I didn't finish reading the book, but I intend to. But I read a great deal of it. So that's the story with BCK, a.k.a. Brian Kohlberger. He's out there in Idaho. I think they're going to begin his trial in October, so they say, whatever, niggas, whatever. I don't have an ashtray. And it's too hot for me to just pluck it in the yard because it'll start a fucking fire. And I'll be like, now that's a fire. Oh, shit. Whatever, niggas, whatever. So, then you got Rex Heuermann, who BTK, ever the attention whore that he is, feels that Rex Heuermann and Brian Kohlberger are knockoffs of him. That's pretty much what he says. Because, like I said, ever the attention whore BTK is. So these 2 guys have been getting a lot of attention in the media. And BTK does not like that. BTK has been in prison, in case you don't know, for the past 18 years. BTK started killing in 1976. He had to stand up in court and recount each and every of the 10 murders that he was convicted of. 4 of those murders were altogether was a family. A mother, father, a boy, and a girl, their children. And unfortunately, their 3 other children came home from school and found them. I'm much too tipsy to go into details, and I'm not going to go into details, not in this video anyway. And what BTK, Dennis Rader, would do, he would cut the telephone lines, because we're not talking about in the age of cell phones, people had landlines back in the 70s, 80s, and in the 90s. And this is after him trolling, as he says, which is really stalking someone. It could be for several months, could be for a whole year, could be for a couple of years before he decides to put him down, as he says, quote unquote, put him down. So he would cut the telephone lines and creep into their house, and he would have a ruse, and he would say something like, hey, I'm on my way to California. I'm a wanted man, and I just need some money for gas and transportation to get to where I want to go. And I'm just going to tie you up, and I'm going to take your money, and I'll be out of here. But he knew he wanted to bind, torture, and kill them, because that's what BTK stands for: bind, torture, and kill. So they would agree, believing him, believing his routes, that, he's just passing by, he just needs some money for transportation. And so they would allow him to tie him up, and then he would strangle him to death. And BTK was the type of serial killer that liked to play cat and mouse. Cat and mouse with the police. So back in the day, in the 70s and shit, he would kill somebody and then call the cops and say, you will find a homicide at 843 Pershing Street. And then he'd hang up and shit. And they'd go and they'd find some young woman murdered. And it's the type of shit he did. And they would play that recording on the 6 o'clock news, hey, BTK, the killer. And he would send them letters and shit, them meaning the news station and the newspapers. And so, they was blasting this recording, this phone call, when he said, you will find a homicide at 843 Pershing Street. And BTK was actually married, much like Rex Heuermann. Very similar. They both got caught at the age of 59. They both had been married close to 30 years, if not 30 years. And they both had a son and a daughter. And there were times when, they would play this recording of BTK. And one evening, BTK is sitting on the couch watching the news with his wife. And they played that recording, and she turns to him and says, you sound just like BTK. And she goes back watching the news, the 6 o'clock news, not knowing that, yeah, you married to BTK. He out here killing bitches. And then he wrote letters and shit to the news station. So, of course, they blasted that. They blasted that on the 6 o'clock news, his handwriting. And one day he was sitting down writing at the kitchen table, and his wife comes by and says, you write just like BTK. And she just goes on about her business. BTK was a real fucking dinger. That's why I'm telling you, if you want to know more about him, go listen to my book reading, Inside the Mind of BTK by John Douglas. So, now, because Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, and what's his name, Bryan Kohberger, have been getting massive attention, this is pissing BTK off. Because he needs to be the center of attention. He's a sadistic, narcissistic, sexual sadist psychopath. That's exactly what he is. He's just not fucking human. And I'll keep repeating this. Please do not teach your children that there are no such things as monsters. You're lying to them, and you're doing them a grand disservice, because there are such things as monsters. There are monsters like BTK, Rex Heuermann, and Bryan Kohberger. And that's just naming a few. So the way BTK got caught, he had stopped for many, many years, and people meaning, news reporters, journalists, so on and so forth, detectives, they assumed that maybe either he was in jail or he was dead, because they haven't heard a peep out of him. And it was like the 30th anniversary back in 2004 of BTK's first murders of that family I told you about. And they were suspecting that it was a particular individual or individuals. And there was individuals who came forth and said, yeah, I did those murders. And that pissed off BTK because he wants credit for the work he did. So he sent them driver's license and shit of victims to the news station. Talk about it was me. These motherfuckers are liars. It was me. And I'm still around. So he started playing cat and mouse games with the police. Why? Because he's a narcissistic psychopath. Narcissists crave attention, to say the least. And so he was having fun playing with the police. And I just got a question. Why is VS interviewing Rob Rack's ex-girlfriend? Okay, I'll check that out as soon as I can. I do not know, darling. I do not know. Anyway, so he was doing shit like having them go on a rat race. He would leave little clues, like in a pickup truck. He left a cereal box in there. You know, cereal for serial killer. Ha ha he. Get it? Yeah, that's Dennis Rader's sick fucking mind. And then he had a floppy disk. Remember those floppy disks? Those little square 3x5 inch shits that you would stick in your computer and you could save all type of information on. We're going back to 2004, okay? So he writes the news station and says, hey, if I send you information on a floppy disk, will you be able to trace that back to me? And I need you to answer my question in the help wanted section or some shit of the newspaper on Sunday. So naturally, the police followed his directions and answered his question in the help section of the Sunday newspaper and said, no, we won't be able to trace anything back to you, BTK. Not at all. No, sir, Bob. Well, you know the cops lied because they know they're dealing with a fucking idiot, right? So he sends a floppy disk. They got that floppy disk. They sent it to the best computer analysts that they had. And the name Dennis Rader came up on the floppy disk from Christ Lutheran Church. You know, Dennis Rader was like the assistant pastor or some shit at his church. Yeah. Crazy motherfucker. He even killed somebody and brought the woman into the church and took all kinds of sexual pictures with the dead woman and dressed her up and put a mask on her face and took pictures and all types of shit. Look, Dennis Rader is a sick motherfucking cookie. If you don't know, now you know. So they traced it back to Dennis Rader and they needed more evidence. And they found out Dennis Rader, he lives here and he has children. He has a daughter all the way in Missouri, I think, going to college. They went to that university in Missouri and they went to the medical department of that university or the clinic, and they got that chick's pap smear and got the DNA and compared it to the DNA that they found on several bodies. And that's how they caught Dennis Rader, a.k.a. BTK. So, I digress. So now that Rex Heuermann, Lord, they only charging him with 3 bodies so far. If I could take a guess, he has at least 25 bodies. And because the attention is so high on Rex Heuermann and Bryan Kohberger, it's pissing BTK off. So you know what BTK does? All these years, y'all hear me? All these years, we've only thought that BTK killed 10 people between 1974 and I want to say 1991. All these years, we only thought it was 10. Oh, do you see that pretty red bird? No, you don't. Camera's not picking it up, but it's a cardinal. Absolutely beautiful. The red on this bird is gorgeous. Sorry, you can't really see it. So, oh, where was I? Told you I was drinking, right? Um, what the fuck was I saying? That's why I should be paying attention to other shit. Um, they're getting the attention. Oh, okay. So we only thought he only killed 10 people. That's why he got like 172 years. He's like 77 years old. He's rotting to his core, according to his daughter, Kerry Rader. By the way, she has written a book, A Serial Killer's Daughter. I ordered that book today. And as soon as I finish the bunny book, I'm hitting that shit. But anyway, so he throws out breadcrumbs of some murders that the authorities don't know about because he needs the attention. He's in competition with these other two serial killers. Well, Brian Koberger, again, mass murderer. I like to refer to him as a serial killer because if he didn't get caught with his first crime, which we believe this is his first crime, which was a mass murder, he'd be a serial killer because he'd kill again and again and again and again and again and again until he's caught. But anyway, BTK is really pissed off that they are getting all this shine. So how does he thwart himself ahead of him? Ahead of them, I should say. There's two cold case murders, one in 1990 and one in 1976, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently, there's an area in Kansas, you know, like how New York it's called the tri-state area, which is New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. Well, it's the same thing with Kansas. There's an area, tri-state area, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri. Well, there was one 16-year-old killed from Oklahoma, I think, and another older woman, maybe in the 20s or so, killed in Missouri. Cold cases, but BTK has been writing folks and leaving breadcrumbs and information that only a fucking murderer of those two individuals would know. So now there's a big investigation reopened into BTK about these two unsolved murders, and thus he is getting the attention he craves. Thus is why I named this video Serial Killer Soap Opera, because it's a fucking soap opera at this point, and I'm here for it. Now, I will go live with the second episode of Serial Killer Soap Opera, live from my desktop so I could play some news clips and show pictures and this and that and the other. Now, Kerry Rader, BTK's daughter, God bless her soul. She's written a book I told you about. So Dennis Rader was convicted in 2005, and for like 10 years, Kerry was silent, his daughter, going through trauma therapy and all of that, and she has written a book. And she's very outspoken and an advocate for the victims. So with these new two unsolved cases concerning her father, so I want to say, like the first few years after his conviction, he had no contact with his family. The only one he had contact with after a few years was his daughter, Kerry. And they had written each other letters back and forth for several years. And then she had to like cut him off because he started having people stalk her. Who are these people? His fans. Yes, BTK has fucking fans. He got women who are in love with him. And they would send his daughter emails or get on her Facebook and be like, you're a fucking horrible daughter and you need to respect your father. And you be like, the fuck? Respect your... Do you know who her father is? These people are fucking sick. And so she had to put a restraining order against him. And she's had one for the past few years. But because the woman is such an advocate for the victims and is hell-bent on finding closure for the families of their lost loved ones who do not have any answers, she recently visited her father in prison after all these years, after the order protection and everything. Now she's working with the ops. Who are the ops? The FBI, the law enforcement of the counties in Missouri and Oklahoma where these cold case crimes have been committed. And so she's trying to get information from her father to bring closure to the families of these two cold case victims. And she said, all her life there was dad, and she's only knew Dennis Rader as dad, father. And then there's BTK. She never knew BTK. She only knew daddy. But because BTK is aware that she's working with the fucking ops, in his mind, he shut down on her. And in fact, before he shut down, he revealed BTK to her. That's the first time she met BTK and her father. But he shut down, wouldn't give her any information. He wants the long stroke, law enforcement, and all these true crime enthusiasts and sleuths. He's got to long stroke us because the more he long strokes us, the more attention he gets, and that feeds his narcissism and his psychopathy. But big up and God bless Kerry Rader. I can't wait to get to her book because all these years I have wondered, how in the hell could you be married to BTK? How in the hell could BTK be your pappy and you not know he's BTK? It's all in her book. I can't wait to get to it. So she's been doing the work of the Lord. And so far it's been fruitless, kind of, as far as I know. But perhaps she'll have some success. She's learned how to criminal profile. She rubs elbows with the best in the business. The best in the business, the best of the criminal profilers. The ones who started up the behavioral science unit over there in Quantico, Virginia. The ones who initially coined the term in the 80s as a serial killer. Though, yeah, those bad motherfuckers over there. Love them, love them, love them. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Now, I was a teenager when all this behavior science unit was started up. And, I had no clue about this stuff. But my God, if I could do it all over again, I'd be an FBI agent running around the country chasing serial killers and interviewing them in prisons. I promise you that's what I would be doing. But I'm a little bit too old for that shit now. So, this is just an introduction to the serial killer soap opera series. Because believe you me, it is a fucking soap opera. I intend to go through details with videos and law enforcement press conferences and all types of shit so that we will all be informed together about these oven roasted fucking nuts. And then hopefully throughout the course you will learn to pick out these oven roasted fucking nuts that run out here in these YouTube streets, because they're out here. And far too many of you are enamored with their charm and don't even know you're dealing with a fucking monster. Shame on you, because Madam Whip has been telling you for years. And lately I've been noticing people are picking up on it. People are starting to see beyond the mask of charm, the mask of intelligence, the mask of friendliness, the mask of advocacy. Behind that fucking mask is a fucking monster. Now, a lot of times, people think Madam Whip-Ass don't know what she's talking about. You better open your ears and open your eyes and see for yourself. So anyway, life is good. Life is good for Jumanji and Diva. Life is good for Simba. Life is definitely good for my backyard birds. And life is good for the deer. Because I feed them. You know, my deers are healthy. Even the babies, they so beautiful. I wish they would show themselves right now. But they are so beautiful. And, you know, I just take care of any living thing on my property. Even the fucking snakes. There's a big ass snake about a month ago in the yard. Ooh, that sucker was long. Had to be about 5 feet long. But I let him go on about his business. I don't think he was poisonous. So he hangs out around here somewhere. But I take care of every living thing because I love and appreciate life of all living things. And you need to understand that everybody does not appreciate the life of others. There are monsters out here who constantly fantasize and are thinking about raping and murdering and taking the life of others. And a lot of times they prey on ladies of the night because they feel that nobody cares about them. Nobody will miss them. And you know what? They got a point. Because when you look at the Gilgo 4 that Rex Heuermann is charged with, you know, when you read about them, especially back when they were first discovered, you know, prostitutes, sex workers, you know, nobody cared. Nobody cared. They could have caught Rex Heuermann back in 2011 if they really cared. If they even put a modicum of effort, they could have caught him. But they did nothing. They buried important evidence. And God knows how many more he has killed between 2011, 2010, and 2023. They're looking at Rex Heuermann for murders in South Carolina and 5 murders in Vegas. This fool been killing escorts, if you will, all over the country. And nobody cared until now. So stay tuned for the next installment of the Serial Killer Soap Opera, because it's a soap opera. If Rex Heuermann should decide to go to trial, I will be reporting on that shit as much as I can. As he is in the Suffolk County Jail, he has been visiting with a priest. Perhaps, you know, he's going through the process of coming to terms with himself, and perhaps he'll confess and there won't be a trial. Either way, I'll be reporting about it. As for BTK, he'll still be yelling and screaming for attention, and the powers that be will give him the attention instead of just shutting him down and acting like he don't exist. But that's impossible to do with somebody like BTK. He is a real humdinger. Again, start listening to the book that I was reading, Inside the Mind of BTK, on this very channel. Um, it's very interesting from cover to cover. But BTK, to even say he was a trip is a massive understatement. I've never seen anything like him. He's a thing. He's not even a human being. He's a fucking thing. There are some people, I've even met children that I'm convinced that they walked straight out of hell and came to earth. BTK is one of them. I think he came straight out of hell. I can't believe he came through in this world vaginally through a woman. He's a fucking monster. Could you imagine? Understand what I'm telling you about BTK. And this is no exaggeration what I'm about to tell you. 90% of his day he is fantasizing. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Imagine 90% of your waking hours you are fantasizing about stalking someone, about binding them up, about torturing them and killing them. This is what's going through. It's like you're living in a dream during your waking hours 90% of your day. Understand that is BTK. These women who write him and think he's a great guy, I guarantee you he's fantasizing about binding, torturing, and killing them. This is his life. This is what he does. 90% of your day, you live in a fucking fantasy. And what I'm saying to you probably won't connect because you're a normal individual. But try to be unnormal for a moment. And try to imagine going about your day, 90% of it, you are fantasizing about binding, torturing, and killing women. Again, if you need to go in more depth about what I just stated, go listen to the book, Inside the Mind of BTK. Catch up. I'm going to finish it at some point. But at least I got to the parts where it exposes his psyche, his psychopathy. Please do not teach your children, again, that there are no such thing as monsters. That's a fallacy. It's a total lie, and you're doing your children a disservice. If you think about Ted Bundy, how did he get his victims? By being the most charming fellow you would ever meet. A charming fellow with a fake broke arm in a sling who's trying to put something in his yellow Volkswagen Beetle. And an unsuspecting young woman is walking by, and he goes, "Hey, I'm having a hard time putting this in the back seat of the car. Can you help me out?" He got his arm in a sling. Oh, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, they just want to do their duty and help their fellow man. You know, he's struggling. He got one arm. Well, let me get in this Volkswagen Beetle for you, mister, and I'll pull it through while you push with your one arm." And then he closes the door. There's no handles to open the door, so she can't get out. And then he drives off with her. And Lord Jesus Christ, I won't go into details what he does afterwards. But suffice it to say, after he murders them, he'll come back a couple of times when she's dead in the woods where he deposited her, and he'll screw her while she's dead. Yeah. He had no problem with brushing off maggots and shit and going in. Sick motherfuckers. You hear me? Sick. Anyway, thanks for stopping by and listening to my serial killer soap opera episode. And as more information comes out, I will come back and share with you all. All right? I'm going to have some more. You see all them birds? There's like 2 red cardinals. Their colors are so beautiful. Actually, there's 3. And then there's another type of species. Might be a finch. And then the male red cardinal just flew on top. You see him on top of the White House? Oh, they know I love them. I make sure they eat and they stay healthy. Even the squirrels are nice and fat. All right. Anyway, I gotta go. Once again, thank you. And I'm gonna try and come back tonight and read some more of The Kept Ones, The Fame Years by Bunny DeBarge. Peace, and I'm out.